Hi. No, go ahead if you want to.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Thank you very much for coming to the screening and staying for the seminar. We are going to talk about the Quebec film industry and author today. And we are very happy to have our guest, Claire Valade, here with us today. Claire has been working for so many film festivals and organizations in Quebec and Montreal, and she was also the former president of the Quebec Film Critic Association, and she is very experienced. But this is the first time that she ever in Hong Kong, so let's give her a big hand to welcome. And also our interpreter, Christopher Wong. Thank you.
Hi. So today I was asked to talk to you about the film industry in Quebec, and also about Auteurs in independent cinema, or what we call independent cinema in Quebec. Sorry. Yesterday, my colleague Peter Risk gave an excellent presentation in which he, I don't know how many of you were there, but he set up basically a bit of today's talk in the sense that he explained how things were in the early days in Quebec, so I'm not going to cover that again. I will simply, just so you can understand how things work today, I'll just give a couple of reminders. There wasn't really any film industry per se in the from the very early days, the invention of cinema and stuff like that, all the way to the 1960s, sort of. There were some films that were produced in Quebec. Most of them were made either by the NFB, the National Film Board of Canada, or the Office National du Film du Canada, which I'll come back to in the second part of my talk. But there were the other types of films that were produced were mostly popular type films, either sentimental dramas or literary adaptations, and they were really made for the public to enjoy more than anything else. There was not really any auteur theory in those films. I'll show a clip, I'll let Chris translate, and I'll show a clip after that.
咁啊，今日歡迎大家嚟參加佢嘅講座啦。咁佢會就住魁北克省嘅呢個電影行業同埋佢哋一啲作者、導演同埋佢哋嘅獨立電影作為一個分享。咁啊，琴日如果你有參加我哋嘅另外一個講座咧，佢嘅同事 Peter Rees 咧，其實係有做對呢個魁北克省嘅呢個電影係做咗一個早期嘅一個情況，做咗一個好詳盡嘅介紹。咁今日佢就唔會重複呢一部分。咁佢又提到就係話喺早期電影發明電影嘅早期咧，其實魁北克係冇電影嘅行業嘅，直到大概1960年代先開始有自己出品嘅出品嘅作品。咁早期嘅呢啲作品主要都係由加拿大國家電影局資助而製作嘅。咁亦都有一啲佢頭先提到一啲相對比較通俗嘅作品。咁好多時候佢哋可能係一啲言情劇或者係一啲文學作品改編嘅。咁佢跟住落嚟會放一段片係俾大家睇一睇大概當時大學嘅情況。
So just to give you an idea of the kinds of films that were produced in the 1940s and 1950s, I'll show you a short clip from a film called Aurore l'enfant martyr. I don't know how Chris can translate that. Aurore is the name of the little girl. It was inspired by what we call in French a fait divers, which is something like a news story that happened for real. And l'enfant martyr, she was basically a martyr child who was tortured by her mother-in-law and died. And it captured the imagination of Quebecers all over Quebec. And they made a film out of it, and it's atrocious.
咁呢段片係嚟自1952年一部作品啦，咁係講一個小朋友係嗰件事係本身係嚟自新聞發生嘅一個故事，咁一個小朋友就俾佢嘅母親就虐待致死，咁當時成個省嘅人都知道呢件事，咁我拍咗一段咁樣嘅拍咗一部咁嘅作品去講呢件故事。
So the poor Aurore has revealed her torture to someone outside of the house, and the mother-in-law is unhappy, so she burns her hands on the, yeah, that's another clip. So she burns her hands on the stove, and the poor Aurore is, faints, and the mother-in-law just smiles in glee over what she's done. So not very subtle, as you could see. You don't need to understand language to understand what was going on, but it was extremely popular. It made tons of money at the time, and that's more or less the kind of films that were produced in the 1940s and 50s for Quebec audiences.
咁呢一部作品可以話都可以反映到當時佢哋出產嘅作品大概都唔係一啲非常之高深嘅作品，就算你唔識佢哋嘅語言，你都可以大概明白個情節。咁呢度係個小朋友係被佢個呢個長輩係虐待，將佢手放咗喺個爐上面就燒親，咁跟住個長輩仲係笑嘅，咁大概係一個咁樣嘅情況當時。
Basically, after the 1960s, as Peter explained in his talk yesterday, something happened politically in Quebec. It's called the Quiet Revolution. And everything more or less changed culturally because Quebecers, who up until then had been called Canadiens Français, French Canadians, decided to fully become Quebecois, to claim their identity as Quebecers. And that was reflected in the films of the time, mainly the films of the National Film Board, where a French unit was created, a French program, and the golden age of Quebec, both documentary and Quebec fiction film sort of was born at the time. And in the 1960s and 70s, a lot of the classics that you were showing today, this week during the festival, were made at the time. I'm going to go into explaining how the industry works, because that's from that point forward that the way the industry is currently built in Quebec was born in the 1960s.
咁琴日Peter Rees 教授佢有提到60年代咧，魁北克省經歷過呢個直政革命嘅呢個喺政治層面上經歷過呢個直政革命啦。咁喺文化上佢哋喺之前咧，佢哋係稱呼自己做呢個法裔加拿大人。咁喺呢段時間佢哋開始揾到佢哋自己嘅身份，佢哋開始稱呼自己做魁北克人。咁與此同時喺電影嘅層面咧，可以話佢哋嘅黃金一代嘅呢啲紀錄片嘅導演或者係一啲長片嘅導演都開始湧現啦。咁你哋呢一次喺呢個電影節入邊睇到好多呢啲大量嘅一啲比較經典嘅作品，其實都係喺1960年代呢個時候係拍攝嘅。咁跟住落嚟，佢會解釋一下呢個魁北克佢本身呢個電影行業嘅係點樣運作咯。因為現時佢哋電影行業嘅運作嘅模式咧，可以話就係喺1960年代嘅時候開始成型嘅。
So, in the 60s, the NFB already existed, the National Film Board of Canada. I'll explain a bit more in detail afterwards what it was about and the kinds of filmmakers that came out of it. But basically, the NFB was founded in 1939, so it had already existed for a while. But in the 1960s, filmmakers in Quebec basically started to want a bit more freedom, to do what they wanted. And so institutions were created at the time. The first one to have been created was created by the federal government in Canada, from Ottawa, and it was called at the time the Canadian Film Development Corporation, or CFDC. It was created in 1967. And eventually, in 1984, the CFDC changed its name and became Telefilm Canada. Telefilm Canada is the institution that still exists to this day under that name. And it basically is the federal agency that funds film production in Canada. At the beginning, it was funding only film, and now it funds both films for cinema, but also television programming. And in more recent years, like in the past 15, 20 years, it's also started funding other types of new media productions as well.
咁啊，早期嘅加拿大嘅電影，好似我哋琴晚都有討論過，就係都係由加拿大國家電影局去資助嘅。咁大概去到60年代咧，咁好似魁北克省嘅呢啲電影人，佢哋希望獲得更加多嘅自由度去進行創作。咁當時佢哋加拿大政府亦都有回應佢哋呢個一個訴求啦。喺1967年就成立咗呢個當時係叫做加拿大電影發展公司。咁去到1984年咧就改咗名成為加拿大影視管理局。咁到而家都仲係叫呢個名稱嘅。咁呢個係一個聯邦嘅機構，係資助加拿大嘅電影人去拍攝電影啦。咁後期嘅話亦都加入咗拍攝電視同埋有新媒體嘅呢個資助計劃嘅。
In the 1970s, Quebecers wanted more and more independence from Canada, so from the federal government. In 1975, there was a new provincial institution that was created in Quebec called the Institut Québécois du Cinéma, the IQC, sorry. And contrary to Telefilm Canada, the IQC produced short films as well as feature films. Telefilm only produced feature films, well funded, not produced, different thing. So it funded short films and medium-length films and feature films, as well as animation films, which also were not funded by Telefilm Canada.
咁當時喺70年代咧，魁北克省係希望能夠從加拿大聯邦政府可以獲得更加大嘅自由度啦。咁喺呢個時候，1975年咧，魁北克省就成立咗佢哋自己嘅一個電影局。咁呢個電影局咧，佢係有資助電影人去拍攝長片啦、短片啦同埋動畫嘅。
Other institutions were also created eventually in the 1980s. To fund provincially productions in Quebec. Eventually, all of these institutions, so the IQC and the other ones, were all merged into one that was called at the time SOGIC, and which is now called SODEC. So SODEC is the Société de développement des entreprises culturelles du Québec. SODEC is, as it currently exists, basically funds cultural productions in Quebec. So it's not just film, it covers books and stage works and all kinds of things that are culturally related. But one of the branches of SODEC is also devoted to film production. So these days, basically, to produce a film in Quebec, about 99% of Quebec production is financed partially by Telefilm Canada and by SODEC, as well as other sources of funding that I'll explain after.
咁頭先提到嘅呢個魁北克省嘅電影局後面係同其他嘅一啲相關同電影相關嘅機構係合併，成為咗呢個魁北克文化發展局。咁佢哋到而家都係叫呢個名稱。咁佢係資助 各個唔同嘅文化行業嘅一個發展咧，唔單單係電影，亦都包括電視啊、書本出版啊同埋戲劇嘅。咁佢而家提到就係話，基本上99%嚟自魁北克省嘅電影嘅製作咧，佢哋一定都係有得到頭先講到嗰兩大機構嘅個資助，一個係加拿大影視管理局，呢個係加拿大聯邦嘅一個機構，咁同埋呢個魁北克省自己嘅文化發展局。咁基本上所有嘅電影都係有得到呢兩個機構嘅資助去拍攝嘅。
Apart from Telefilm Canada, federal, and SODEC, provincial, there's other types of funding agencies. The two main ones which exist, there's also one federal and one provincial, are the arts councils. In Canada, it's called the Canada Arts Council, and in Quebec, it's called the Conseil des Arts et des Lettres du Québec, CALQ. Those two institutions are also government-run, and they fund the arts in general. So it's not strictly devoted to cinema, but they also the films that they fund tend to be very artistic-oriented, sometimes even experimental, and even though occasionally there is funding given to feature films, it mostly funds smaller projects, short films, medium-length films, usually more artistic in nature, rarely fiction.
咁除咗頭先講嗰兩個機構之外咧，亦都有兩個藝術委員會，一個係聯邦嘅層面加拿大藝術委員會，同埋有一個係省嘅層面魁北克省嘅藝術委員會，佢哋亦都會資助藝術家去進行一啲拍攝嘅。咁呢兩個委員會佢都唔係淨係得資助電影本身，佢哋係資助各個藝術嘅唔同嘅範疇去進行創作。咁通常佢哋係偏向資助短片同埋中等長度嘅電影為主，比較少係會資助呢個長片，亦都係偏向文藝片比較多，同埋實驗性比較強嘅作品比較多。
There are other types of funding available. I'll explain that a little bit later when I speak about independent cinema in Quebec. But just to conclude the types of help that is given to Quebec films, there is also another institution called Quebec Cinema. It doesn't fund production, but it helps in promoting films. It's an institution that basically oversees 4 different types of activities, 2 of which have existed since the early, one of which exists since the early 1970s, and the other one was created in the late 80s, early 1990s. The first one is called the Rendezvous Québec Cinéma, which is basically a Quebec film festival. It's a film festival that takes place in winter and that showcases all of the years well, that's not true. It used to showcase all of the previous year's production in Quebec, but now Quebec production has grown to such an extent that it's not possible to show everything anymore, so a selection is made of what is considered the best films of the year. The other institution, main institution, is now called the Gala Québec Cinéma, which is basically Quebec's version of Oscars. Originally, the trophy that was given was called the Jutras, from Claude Jutras, and now it's called the Iris, which is Quebec's national flower, and it's on our flag, and it's on your catalog actually, on the cover, and so the Iris is given every year annually by the industry, and it's our version of the Oscars.
咁除咗頭先提到嘅呢啲資助嘅機構之外咧，魁北克佢本身亦都有佢自己一個機構係魁北克電影委員會。咁佢哋其實係將之前嘅一啲電影節同埋佢哋嘅電影頒獎典禮全部都涵蓋咗喺呢個機構底下嘅。咁電影節本身就係會 每一年嘅冬天都會選影佢哋當年佢哋省出品嘅一啲比較優秀嘅作品進行一個放映啦。咁另外一個就係佢哋自己都有佢哋嘅所謂嘅接近奧斯卡咁樣嘅頒獎典禮。咁最早嘅時候係叫 Jutra， 係以呢個導演朱特拉先生嚟命名。咁而家已經將佢改咗名，變咗係 Iris， 係佢哋省嘅一個省花，亦都有啲喺我哋呢一次個 House Program 上面係有呢朵花嘅。
The other two activities that Quebec Cinema oversees, one of them is educational, so they organize film screenings in schools throughout the province and actually throughout Canada. And they basically, their mandate is education. In French, we call it éducation à l'image. So they educate young people from primary school all the way to university about how to read film, basically, how to understand moving images. And they use Quebec films to do that. The other branch, the fourth activity that they cover is called the tour, la tournée Québec Cinéma. And that's basically a tour of a selection of films that are taken from the festival, the Rendezvous, and they tour with this selection of film with filmmakers. They tour Canada and they also go to a few other places. I think they go to Europe, and it changes a little bit every year.
咁頭先講呢個機構，佢另外兩個職能就係其中一個係喺魁北克省嘅學校進行一個影像教育，係透過播放佢哋魁北克省自己嘅電影，去教導學生點樣去從細去培養一個觀影嘅一個興趣，同埋去教識佢哋點樣去觀賞電影。咁另外一個就係去組織呢啲喺加拿大本國喺其他嘅省份去做一個巡遊嘅放映，去放映佢哋魁北克省嘅作品，有時都會去到歐洲進行一啲展映。
Now, about the National Film Board of Canada, it's a bit of a unique thing. The National Film Board of Canada is not a funding agency. It's sort of like our very own version of a Hollywood studio, except that it funds everything but Marvel films. It's an institution that was founded, as I said, in 1939 by Scott, who was invited to Canada by the Canadian government to create an agency, the National Film Board, as a propaganda agency originally, because it was created to help the war effort. It changed vocation after the war. There was much talk about whether it should be closed altogether, but they decided to keep it open and to continue operating it as basically a hub to explore documentary film and to fund films that would explain Canada to Canadians, so to speak.
咁翻去頭先佢最早提到嘅加拿大國家電影局，咁佢係1939年成立。咁早期其實佢係一個主要嘅功能係為官方做一啲政治宣傳嘅一個機構。特別喺二戰嘅時候係希望鼓勵民眾去打勝仗，同埋希望能夠幫政府做一啲呢方面嘅宣傳。咁喺戰後咧，其實係有個非常之激烈嘅討論，係咪應該要將佢關閉？咁但係佢最後都係留低咗，但係佢嘅成個職能就轉變咗啦，就變咗係一個希望能夠好有啲似其實加拿大政府係希望將佢定位係一個好似個荷里活嘅片廠咁樣，去鼓勵呢個電影創作一個樞紐嚟嘅。咁但係其實佢嘅職能係不斷咁樣喺度隨住嗰個行業嘅發展係不斷喺度演變。咁後尾係變咗係鼓勵好多呢啲紀錄片嘅創作，同埋去資助一啲長片嘅拍攝。
So basically, the National Film Board works as a studio. Originally, it had everything. It had studios to shoot films in. It had a camera shop where you could find every possible camera you could think of. For example, it also had an R&D department, research and development, which led to very, very many discoveries and inventions, including, for example, IMAX was born at the National Film Board of Canada. With time, the vocation changed many times. It produced a variety of different films. Its main focus has always been documentary and animation, and currently that is still its main focus. But at some point in time, there was some production of fiction films at the NFB, and I will show a couple of clips from two of the most memorable fiction films.
咁加拿大國家電影局其實佢嗰個定位係一個好似片廠咁樣，佢係有佢所有嗰啲拍攝嘅設備都係非常之齊全嘅，有攝影棚，有佢有一個非常之豐富嘅一個攝影機嘅鋪頭啦，基本上當時可以揾得到嘅攝影機，大家都可以喺嗰度揾到，亦都有佢自己嘅研發部門啦。咁佢提到 IMAX 其實喺嗰度出現嘅，係佢哋發明嘅。咁佢哋一路以嚟嘅定位主力都係推廣呢個紀錄片同埋動畫片。咁喺中間嘅過程裏邊，亦都有嘗試過去推廣去拍攝呢個劇情片。咁佢喺呢度跟住落嚟會放兩段片俾大家睇下佢哋曾經有參與過一啲創作。
So yesterday Peter spoke at length about some of the auteurs that came out of the National Film Board, mainly Michel Brault, who was also a cinematographer, an exceptional cinematographer and an exceptional filmmaker. You're showing two of his films, one that was a co-direction, Pour la suite du monde, and the other one, Les Ordres, or I think the title that you have in your program is Auteurs, but it's really orders, the orders that are given. Les Ordres is based, inspired by the October crisis in Quebec from 1970. But you're also showing another film by Claude Jutras, which has often been considered, voted for many, many, many years by critics everywhere, the best Canadian film ever. It's called Mon Oncle Antoine, My Uncle Antoine, and it's a story of a young boy. It's a coming-of-age story of a boy in rural Quebec who helps his uncle, and everything takes place around the Magasin Général, the main market. I don't really know how to translate Magasin Général in English, quite frankly. It's a bit of a unique thing. And his uncle is the undertaker, and things happen, and he comes of age. The other clip, I'm going to show a clip of that film. The other clip that follows was by another NFB filmmaker, a major filmmaker. Her name is Anne-Claire Poirier. She was one of many women who made films at the NFB, and she made both documentary and fiction films. The film that, the clip that I'll show you is called Mourir à tue-tête. It's a very, very harsh film about rape. And when the film came out in 1979, it was extremely controversial because it was the first time that an actual rape was kind of shown on screen, but also the consequences of that rape for the woman and for people around her. And a lot of people thought that this kind of thing shouldn't be shown, but Anne-Claire Poirier said that, on the contrary, it needed to be shown. She was a feminist, and she said that as an artist, these kinds of things needed to be confronted, and of course, she was right.
跟住落嚟佢會放兩段片咧，一段片係嚟自呢個朱特拉導演嘅《安東尼叔叔》，咁係好多影評人都選過係認為係可能有史以嚟最優秀嘅一部加拿大作品，咁係一個小朋友成長嘅故事。咁另外一段片就係一位魁北克省嘅一個女性導演，佢亦都係一個女性主義者。咁當時非常之轟動，係因為呢個片咧係第一次係出現係有強姦嘅呢個情況，同埋嗰個受害者之後所承受嘅一啲後果。咁當時好大嘅爭議就係話好多人可能認為唔應該喺電影入邊呈現呢啲咁血淋淋嘅一啲鏡頭。咁但係當然Claire 就認為其實後面有後人就證明其實係有呢個必要嘅。
So this is Mon Oncle Antoine. This is the Magasin Général, the central supermarket, so to speak, where everyone came to get everything. And the pretty lady of the area is coming to shop, and everything stops.
On l'a beaucoup vu, oui. Tu l'as pas jamais vu, moi, si je la connais.
She's played by Monique Mercure, who is one of Quebec's best known and most extraordinary actresses. She actually won the Cannes Prize for Best Actress for another film called Gia Martin Photographe. And in this film, she has this one extraordinary scene where she wows everyone in the village.
Est-ce que vous l'avez reçue? Oui, je l'ai mise en haut. Voulez-vous l'essayer?
Obviously, she's unfazed by the effect she's having on the population. And this is Claude Jutras, by the way, the guy you just saw, the filmmaker.
Hey, Benoît, as-tu vu ce qui vient de monter? C'est Alexandrine. Je pense qu'elle va essayer son nouveau corset. Viens, on va aller voir ça.
They're excited because she's ordered a new corset and she's going to be going to try it on. So the boys are going to look through the doorway.
En tous les cas, pour ce qui est de votre week-end, je veux dire dessus, ben, je vous dis qu'il y a des livres, vous allez le voir. Ah, ben, il fait chaud ici. Oh, donnez-moi dans votre manteau. Hey, il y a un homme. Oh, excusez. On va se faire un peu d'intimité. Tiens. Vous aidez?
J'espère que c'est bien celle que j'ai vue dans le catalogue, hein?
Ah, ben exactement, exactement. C'est une triomphe en dentelle noire, avec doublé de rose, hein, des petites rondelles sur la hanche. Oh, vous allez voir. Ben.
J'espère que ça va me faire.
Savez-vous, Alexandrine, vous n'avez pas engraissé du long depuis l'année dernière? Faites-vous toujours vos exercices?
Aidez-moi donc.
Oui. Mais... Regardez-moi ça, si elle est belle. Hein? exactement ce que vous vouliez. Voyez-vous?
Ouais.
Regardez-moi ça.
Je vais voir la taille.
Bougez pas, bougez pas, bougez pas. Bon, ça y est. C'est bon? On en a vu.
Attention, là, vous me faites mal, vous me pincez. Est-ce que c'est ça, ce bruit-là?
Quoi donc?
Il y a quelqu'un derrière là.
You can skip that one. Go to the next one, if you can. Was a documentary filmmaker as well as a fiction filmmaker, and in this film she decided to mix documentary film footage to explore and express what it meant for a woman to be raped, using very harsh footage as well.
Femmes du Vietnam, du Bangladesh et de toutes les guerres. Femmes violées, vidangées, consommées, butin des vainqueurs. Femmes prostituées que les guerriers laissent derrière eux, comme un surplus de guerre sans marché.
So she, of course, she makes a link with war and women who are used as a tool of war too often. A lot of people criticized her for that, but at the time, no one had ever said anything about this kind of thing that happens to women either in the Western world or in war circumstances. And so the film to this day remains very controversial and very, very powerful.
咁呢位女導演佢係將劇情片同埋紀錄片係結合咗啦。咁頭先佢叫有啲片段其實有提到係用咗一啲戰爭時期發生喺譬如好似越南孟加拉嘅一啲片段係即係有講到即係女性被強暴嘅一個情況。咁佢係結合咗一個女主角係被強暴同埋一啲喺戰時發生嘅一啲嘅情況，咁喺當時係非常之有爭議性嘅，咁所以呢套戲到而家都仲係有好多人會提及。
So from this, we'll move to the third part of my talk, which is to dispel a few myths, so to speak, about Quebec cinema. The first one is the issue of independent cinema. Peter talked about this yesterday in his talk a little bit. I'll explore that a tiny bit further to give it a bit more context. As I explained at the very beginning of my talk, about 99% of Quebec films are financed mostly by governmental agencies, other sources of funding, some of which are private, such as, for example, the Harold Greenberg Fund, which funds screenwriting from development all the way to final script. But all of these various sources, including tax credits that are given both by the federal and the provincial government, fund films in Quebec and actually all of Canada. Because of that, it's very difficult to talk about cinema being independent because it's certainly not independent in terms of financing.
咁跟住落嚟，佢會講一下大家可能會對魁北克省嘅電影嘅一啲誤解啦。 咁首先佢會從獨立電影嘅定義開始講起，咁就好似佢之前所講，99%嚟自魁北克省嘅製作都係需要得到呢個政府一啲機構嘅一啲資助。咁當然亦都有啲私人嘅資金，譬如佢提到一個專門開發劇本嘅一個私人嘅基金。咁但係其實基本上就算係好似琴日都有提到嘅一啲免稅嘅一啲計劃、一啲政策。投資電影嘅話，可以得到扣稅同埋免稅，呢啲其實全部都係同政府有關嘅，所以從電影製作嘅融資嘅層面嚟講咧，係好難話呢啲係一啲獨立嘅製作。
Having said that, we in Quebec, as more or less everywhere in the world, talk about independent cinema, and it has a very specific origin. The origin is the 1990s and US films. The notion of independent cinema was more or less invented by the Americans in the 1990s to designate a certain type of films that were made independently from the Hollywood studio system. Films such as Sex, Lies, and Videotape by Steven Soderbergh, which is usually considered to be the first of its type, even though independent cinema exists, has existed in the US since way before that, if you go back to John Cassavetes and Robert Altman and company. But the notion of it was invented in the 1990s, and the most famous of the independent films of the 90s is of course Pulp Fiction by Quentin Tarantino.
咁講到獨立電影咧，咁獨立精神，咁係佢認為應該都係源自呢個90年代對於美國電影嘅一個風潮咯。咁當時大家會話，如果係喺呢個主流嘅荷里活嘅呢個片廠以外嘅製作，就會可能歸類佢哋為獨立電影。咁佢頭先提到兩個導演，一個係蘇德貝格，一個係Quentin Tarantino， 咁好似危險人物，咁呢啲都係當時一啲非常之標誌性嘅作品。咁呢個係當時對，當然如果係美國電影界嚟講，其實獨立電影係喺呢個之前就已經存在。咁但係而家我哋討論到獨立電影嘅話，可能好多時候都會覺得係從90年代開始呢方面嘅討論會比較多咗。
So this notion of independence was applied to Quebec films, as was applied more or less everywhere in the world. In France, they have their own notion of independent cinema, and it's the same thing in England and everywhere, and I'm sure Hong Kong as well. Actually, Peter talked about that a little bit yesterday. I'm certainly not as well versed as he is about Hong Kong cinema, so I will not go there personally. But in Quebec, the idea of independent cinema basically captures a certain kind of spiritual and artistic independence. So it's not a question of financial independence, because films, as I said, are mostly funded by federal, provincial agencies and others. But it's a question of having artistic independence, of having control over what you want to say, and going elsewhere than what commercial films might want you to produce, basically.
咁喺魁北克嚟講，好似頭先佢講嘅一樣啦，喺融資嘅層面上嚟講係好難去講獨立精神嘅。咁但係佢係提到其實都係有一班導演，佢哋喺藝術上係追求獨立自主，喺精神嘅層面上都係追求獨立自主。可能會拍一啲同呢個主流商業電影自然不同嘅作品。
In the 1990s, the generation of Quebec filmmakers that came out of this sort of independent movement include people like André Turpin, who, like Michel Brault before him, became one of Quebec's best known and most extraordinary cinematographers, as well as a filmmaker in his own right. Also Denis Villeneuve, who you probably know because he moved to Hollywood and he's now actually making a new version of Dune after making a follow-up to Blade Runner 3 years ago. And other filmmakers include Philippe Falardeau and Manon Briand.
咁啊喺呢段期間比較活躍嘅一啲獨立電影，佢就提到有4位啦。咁其中一位係安德烈杜賓啦，咁係一個非常之出色嘅一個導演，亦都係一個非常之出色嘅攝影師。咁亦都有丹尼斯韋爾洛夫啦。咁佢係大家應該相信比較熟悉，因為佢而家喺荷里活係近年係參與咗好多大嘅製作嘅。咁另外仲有2位係呢個馬龍布里安同埋菲利普法拉迪約。
There's still a certain kind of independent cinema happening today, of course, in the same spirit as in the 1990s. I would argue that possibly the best known leader of this Quebec independent cinema is Xavier Dolan. He is known the world over because he made his first film when he was 17 with money from his own earnings as a child actor. You're actually showing that film in the festival. It's called J'ai tué ma mère, I killed my mother. Though I would personally argue that his best film so far is called Mommy. I'll show a clip from Mommy and you'll get an idea about that.
咁佢就提到而家如果你話喺過去呢段時間喺嚟自從魁北克湧現最知名嘅呢個獨立導演，咁應該係薩維杜蘭啦。咁呢一次嘅我哋呢個電影節係會放映佢當時17歲拍攝嘅第一部長片係殺死我阿媽。咁佢係當時係用佢自己細個做童星儲翻嚟嘅錢去進行一個拍攝嘅。咁但係佢Claire 咧就認為薩維杜蘭至今最優秀嘅作品應該係媽咪，係香港亦都有放映叫做《慈母多惡兒》。咁佢會放一段嚟自呢個片嘅片段。
Leaving them alone with their joy is quite an extraordinary moment in the film. And for once, he didn't apply one of his trademark affectations, which in this kind of scene, he very often slows the action down, which is fine, it works beautifully, but in this scene he decided to let it play naturally, and that's the power of the scene.
佢就話喺呢一幕咧，其實杜蘭佢同佢平時之前處理呢一種場景嘅處理方法有啲唔同。通常可能佢平時就會將佢放慢節奏，咁但係呢度佢覺得佢係等佢自然咁樣去流露出嚟，反而係令成件事係非常更加有張力嘅。
So Xavier is, I would say, possibly a leader of this pack, even though he's really quite frankly a case unto its own. Most of his films, well, all of his films are almost automatically financed, which is not really the case for other filmmakers. But malgré lui, as we say in French, despite himself, just because of his sheer talent, he's kind of leading this pack. Having said that, there is a pack behind him, and a lot of really interesting, important young filmmakers are coming out of Quebec now, including a lot of guys, Philippe Lesage, for example, and Maxime Giroux, Olivier Godin, Sébastien Pilote, Mathieu Denis and Simon Lavoie. Mathieu Denis and Simon Lavoie are filmmakers who work by themselves, but who occasionally work together. And you are showing the last film in your program is called Ceux qui font les révolutions à moitié n'ont fait que se creuser un tombeau. I'm not going to say the title in English because it's really complicated. And it's quite an extraordinary film in itself, and I do encourage you to come and see it if you can, especially I would say in the current times that you're living in Hong Kong. It's an extraordinary film, and it both celebrates the idea of revolution, but also cautions it at the same time. it's very successful in doing both. I'm going to show you the trailer for the film. I could have shown you a clip, but the trailer actually gives a really good idea of what the film is like, because it's a very unusual film. It's almost like a collage, and the trailer gives a really good idea of what it feels like.
咁頭先佢就講到沙維杜蘭係一個比較特殊嘅例子啦，佢可以話係一個好早就已經成名嘅導演，咁所以佢喺幫佢嘅電影融資嘅時候係完全冇困難嘅。咁但係其實與此同時，魁北克省亦都有湧現其他好多呢啲新進嘅導演，咁佢就其中提到係呢個馬修丹尼斯同埋西蒙拉華呢兩位導演。咁呢一次我哋嘅電影節係選映咗佢哋一部作品叫《革命半途而廢的人》。終將自掘墳墓，咁佢就鼓勵大家去睇呢套戲，因為同我哋而家身處嘅香港可能都有一啲嘢會揾到一啲共鳴，咁係關於革命同埋革命本身可能大家要注意嘅一啲要小心嘅一啲情況。咁佢跟住來會放呢個電影嘅預告片，咁但係其實可以俾大家感受一下佢嘅氣氛，因為佢係一個非常之特別嘅一個作品。
On ne peut pas rester assis sur nos pieds.
I also want to mention that there are many female filmmakers among new young filmmakers in Quebec. There is actually a very strong current that encourages what we call parity, so equality in funding for men and women filmmakers, but also filmmakers of diversity, so indigenous filmmakers and handicapped, any kind of underrepresented groups of people, but especially women, because women were among the strongest group of early filmmakers in Quebec, and they've been systematically underfunded. And so now there's really a big push to fund them equally, but especially because there is an extremely strong cohort of young women making films now, including Anaïs Barbeau-Lavalette, Sophie de Raspe, Chloé Le Riche, whose film called Avant les rues, which is about an indigenous boy trying to escape a violent environment, won the Critics Prize in Quebec 3 years ago. And there's also Chloé Robichaud. Her latest short film has been selected at the next Venice Film Festival. And Geneviève Duluth de Selle won the Crystal Bear in Berlin for her film Une Colonie. And Sophie Dupuis, her film Chien Garde was selected to represent Canada for the Oscar for Best Foreign Film. If we can, I would like to show a clip from Une Colonie, just to give you an idea of what it's like, these films by women.
咁佢就提到其實魁北克省早期都有好多好優秀嘅女性導演啦，咁但係女性導演一直以嚟都係喺成個呢個電影資助制度好多時候佢哋都冇得到呢個資助。咁而家加拿大喺呢方面咧係希望能夠盡量能夠達到一個比較平衡嘅一個狀態，希望能夠有更加多嘅女性導演，甚至係一啲原住民或者係一啲性小眾都能夠可以得到一個資助去拍佢哋嘅作品。咁佢呢度提到有好多優秀嘅女性導演係嚟自係從呢個魁北克省度湧現。咁佢頭先有提到幾位女導演啦，咁佢哋嘅作品都有入圍一啲歐洲嘅3大影展啦，甚至有代表加拿大去參加呢個。去入圍呢個奧斯卡最佳外語片呢個範疇嘅，咁跟住來佢會放一段片係嚟自呢一位女導演係喺去年嘅柏林影展係有得獎嘅。
So this is an example of the kinds of films women are making these days. I'm not saying it's different from the films of the men, but it certainly is an interesting point of view because for one thing, women seem to be much more interested in understanding other people. There's an indigenous character, as I said, in this film, and it's also the case in Avant les rues, the Chloé Le Riche film, which is about a young man trying to belong to his tribe, but also get out of it, and how hard it is for indigenous people in Quebec and Canada to understand where they belong.
咁佢覺得女性導演好多時候佢哋會好關注去嘗試去理解其他嘅族群。咁好似頭先呢個片咧，佢嘅入邊係有一個原住民嘅角色，咁其實喺裏邊係扮演咗一個好重要嘅一個角色嘅。咁佢覺得女性導演好多時候佢哋能夠提供一個唔同，提供一個同男性導演唔同嘅一個視角。
I'm going to say a few things about commercial films in Quebec as well, because the director of the festival told me perhaps we're showing mostly intellectual films, and it gives the false impression that there is no such thing as commercial cinema in Quebec. Well, of course there is commercial cinema in Quebec, as there is everywhere else. The thing is that it doesn't really travel because it's made for local audiences and to be appreciated by local audiences, to make money locally. But for some reason, these films don't really travel because they're either broad comedies that the humor, I guess, is understood locally but doesn't travel very well, or they're stories that are about us and that people think will not really interest anywhere else outside of Quebec, which of course is silly, but those films don't really travel. So you've got really two kinds of categories, two kinds of films, the broad comedies and the literary adaptations or historical biopics. And then there's another category which is slightly different, but I'll let Chris explain and I'll...
咁佢會都稍為觸及呢個商業電影，因為呢一次電影節放嘅嚟自魁北克嘅作品全部都係文藝片，咁可能會有啲觀眾會誤會係咪魁北克唔會有基本上唔會有商業電影嘅產出，咁其實唔係嘅，咁但係咧佢就話佢哋嘅商業電影主要都係一啲大眾喜劇。咁通常都係只係專注於佢哋本土嘅呢個市場，咁可能入邊有啲幽默咧，去到其他地方，可能其他嘅觀眾亦都唔係咁容易明白，所以呢啲電影通常都係只能夠喺佢哋本省係有一個比較好嘅票房，咁亦都有一啲係歷史嘅戲劇或者文學作品嘅改編，咁主要都係商業電影，主要都係呢兩大範疇。
The other category of commercial films, so to speak, are films that do not start out as intentionally commercial, but that basically somehow miraculously manage to be commercial successes. Those films include there are films basically that are auteur films, so to speak, that through some sort of fluke become massive commercial successes. The first one you are showing in the festival is The Decline of the American Empire, the Denis Arcand film, which is definitely at the basis was not meant to be a commercial success at all. It's a film about intellectuals who get together to speak together about sex, and it's very highfalutin, as we might say. They are very, very pretentious people, and eventually they get caught in their own lies. And for some strange reason, of course, it captured a certain zeitgeist of the time. The film came out in 1986. It was shown in Cannes. It won the Critics' Prize. And from there, it just ballooned completely out of control and became a gigantic commercial success. And from there, other films by filmmakers who are traditionally not at all aiming to be commercial. Some other filmmakers got very big commercial successes, including Xavier Dolan. Most of his films do relatively well. Mommy made millions of dollars, for example. And he won a prize at Cannes as well, so that always helps. And Denis Villeneuve's films also make the films that he made in Quebec before going to Hollywood also made quite a bit of money, including a film called Incendie, which is based on a play, takes place partly in Lebanon and the Middle East, and is really not a fun film at all, but somehow also captured audiences and made millions.
咁佢就話仲有另外一類嘅所謂嘅商業電影，咁佢呢啲個定性其實就係話，其實開始佢哋嘅題材或者係內容都唔係作為一個商業電影嘅，咁但係好多時候係因為入圍咗一啲知名嘅電影節同埋攞咗獎之後，令到佢哋喺票房上面係能夠大獲全勝嘅。咁佢提到咗3部作品，其中呢一個電影節有放映嘅《美利堅帝國的衰亡》，由丹尼亞肯導演執導嘅呢個作品，喺當年嘅康城影展係得到咗一個影評人獎。咁之後就喺呢個票房上面係非常之成功嘅。咁亦都有之前提到嘅《薩維杜蘭》慈母多惡兒喺魁北克省嘅票房亦都係非常之理想嘅，以及維爾洛夫。佢喺2010年曾經拍過一部戲叫做《母親的告白》，咁呢一部戲當年喺魁北克省亦都係非常之成功。咁但係個題材其實都係非常之嚴肅、非常之沉重嘅。但係就係因為可能喺一啲影展上面得到一個好評，咁之後再喺票房上面取得咗一個唔錯嘅一個收穫。
We're going to show quickly a clip of Incendie, which is the Denis Villeneuve film. The film that's showing right after this talk is Denis Arcand's Jésus de Montréal. The film also had a fairly large commercial success, though not quite as much as the Déclin de l'Empire américain. But I have a clip of Jésus de Montréal, but I think that Incendie is more interesting for you since you're not programming it, and you'll get an idea of the tone of the film and why it's so surprising that it actually became such a huge commercial success.
咁跟住落嚟，佢會放一段頭先佢提到嘅母親的告白嘅片段啦。咁你會睇到其實個題材真係非常之沉重，係講一個喺黎巴嫩嘅戰亂嘅故事。咁你就會明白點解佢會覺得佢能夠喺票房上面成功係咁意外。
To be a commercial success, you really definitely don't have to be silly, stupid, and inconsequential. To conclude this talk, because I think that I've talked for long enough, and you might have some questions, I would just like to mention a couple of things about the state of current cinema in Quebec. One of them is the fact that getting out of the 90s, Quebec cinema kind of finally moved out of Montreal as well, because in the 1990s it was very, very Montreal-centric. And and to the point that it was actually almost district, neighborhood-centric, because a lot of films took place on the Plateau Mont-Royal in Montreal. And a lot of people decried that. But now filmmakers are interested in making films everywhere in Quebec, and a lot of filmmakers are actually not interested in coming to Montreal to make their films, but staying in their own region to promote their region, but not promote it in a sense of marketing, but just to talk about where they live and what Quebecers are about everywhere in Quebec.
咁佢想總結啦，咁佢會講一講魁北克省電影業而家嘅現狀。咁以前嘅話，可能好多時候佢哋都喺90年代，佢哋都係專注於喺滿地可進行拍攝，甚至係大量嘅取景都係喺譬如好似皇家山呢個咁嘅地方。咁但係佢就話而家有個現象就係好多呢啲嚟自魁北克省唔同地區嘅導演，佢哋都會選擇 本地可以外嘅地區去進行拍攝，甚至係佢哋所身處、所居住嘅地區。咁呢個係一個佢認為係一個比較可喜嘅現象。
The other thing, of course, is that Quebec cinema proof is in this very festival here in Hong Kong. Quebec cinema is getting more and more recognition worldwide and is traveling a lot. Quebec films are shown in film festivals around the world, from Cannes, the big ones, Berlin, everywhere. But our filmmakers are also getting recognized and getting retrospectives. A filmmaker called Denis Côté, who used to be a film critic, had a retrospective of his entire body of work. He's very prolific. Last year in Locarno, and or 2 years ago, I'm not entirely sure, but anyway. And so our films are very recognized, but also our filmmakers, including those who are very much in demand in Hollywood these days. The first one, of course, being Denis Villeneuve, but also Jean-Marc Vallée, who works a lot both in television and in film.
咁佢就話另外一個現象就係本地可嘅嚟自魁北克省嘅導演啦，係得到更加多嘅國際嘅認可啦。咁佢哋嘅作品好多時候都可以入圍到歐洲嘅3大影展，特別係好似康城咁樣。咁亦都有好多嘅導演係可以去到荷里活進行發展，係非常之成功嘅。好似頭先我哋所講嘅韋爾諾夫啦，同埋另外仲有一位導演叫做尚馬克維利，喺荷里活係參與電影嘅拍攝，同埋甚至係電視劇嘅拍攝。咁好多呢啲導演嚟自魁北克嘅導演，佢哋都能夠係得到咗電影節嘅關注，同埋為佢哋做一啲回顧嘅放映嘅 retrospective 嘅呢啲咁嘅回顧展嘅。
I'd like to finish on a film clip. It's from a film called La Chasse au Godard d'Abitibi. It's very typical of, I don't want to call it regional cinema because it's really not regional. It's simply regionally produced, so to speak. It's quite an extraordinary film. It's a comedy. And if you have a chance of seeing it one day, I do encourage you to see it. The guy who made it is called Éric Morin. He's currently making his new film, which will be released next year. But The Chasse au Godard d'Abitibi is, it's a film that encompasses a whole bunch of things and revisits Quebec cinema as well as being its own creature. And it's a film that takes place in a region called Abitibi, which is in northern Quebec. It's a region that is known for its mining, gold, for example, lots of gold mines in the region, a lot of which have now closed. The film takes place in the late 60s or early 70s, and it's inspired by a true story about Jean-Luc Godard, the French filmmaker, the New Wave filmmaker, who actually went to Abitibi thinking he would be making a film with the local indigenous people. It didn't work out at all, and he went back to France and made his regular films. But this is about filmmakers in the region who kind of decide to make their own film because they're inspired by the presence of Jean-Luc Godard.
咁最後佢會放一段片咧，咁呢個片咧係1960年代末嘅時候拍攝嘅。咁故事係根據係受一個真人真事啟發啦，係講呢個法國新浪潮嘅一個著名導演高達先生曾經去過魁北克省嘅一個咁嘅地方叫阿比迪比。咁當地係有非常之多嘅金礦嘅。咁曾經高達先生本來希望同當地嗰啲原住民去拍一個電影，但係最後係失敗嘅。咁佢認為呢個片咧係可以反映到好多魁北克電影嘅一啲獨特嘅一啲特徵嘅。
So in this scene, you've got the three main characters.
C'est un gars de Rochebeaucourt, ça. Au Beau-Canton, là, je sais plus. C'est un agriculteur, puis quand il parle, là, on dirait des mots d'universitaire. C'est des gars de même qui devraient faire de la politique. Lui, là,
The
il
film
parle de
incorporates
l'hypocrisie de la
politics,
colonisation en Abitibi. Tu sais, dans le temps,
local
on fait venir un monde ici sur un
travails,
prétexte agricole. Il
cinema,
n'y aurait pas eu un Canadien
and
français
references
catholique qui
Quebec
serait venu en
cinema.
Abitibi s'il n'y avait pas eu de la terre. Ben pour lui, là, ça, c'était de la bullshit. C'était un prétexte pour envoyer des gars dans les mines puis dans le bois. Puis aujourd'hui, à Bay James. Lui, c'est un vrai gars de terre. Ils ont vidé son village, là. Ils ont fermé, là, son village. Mais lui, il
There's
reste...
very, very strong references in this
Hey, il
scene
va falloir que tu pèses sur
and
le
throughout the
gaz si tu veux
whole
monter ce
film to
côté-là,
Denis
là.
Arcand's early work. And in this particular scene,
Puis il reste là,
it
là, comme une
references
tête
two
de mule.
films, Gina, which is a bit of a thriller, and a documentary that was extremely controversial and actually banned, produced by the NFB called On est au coton. And the guy who's talking right now, ranting, he's ranting about bosses, and that's more or less what On est au coton is about. So they were in the snow, and Gina takes place in the snow. There's a very, very long scene where they drive in the snow like this in this scene. So, there you go.
Um, 有冇問題？觀眾可以俾咪你，跟住咧就問問題，同埋你可以用廣東話講，我哋可以幫你翻譯嘅。
A very quick question regarding the clip you just shown. There's a reference to Beijing. What is it about?
It's about the film takes place in the late 60s, early 70s. I don't remember the exact year, but I think it's in the early 70s, the film. And it incorporates all kinds of what at the time was considered revolutionary ideas, so including communism and all of these things. So it's a reference to, the character is just a melting pot of every revolutionary idea out there, and the film points out his enthusiasm, but also, of course, because the film is made in retrospect, you know, years later, 40 years later, you recognize in the character the error of the ways of such revolutionary ideas. You may want to change the world, but it doesn't really happen that way. It's not that simple, basically.
頭先嗰段片咧就入邊有提到北京，咁Claire 就話當時佢呢個片所描述嘅時代係60年代末70年代初，咁所以而呢個角色本身就係腦入邊係有充滿咗呢啲當時嗰啲革命思潮嘅一啲諗法，咁所以可能佢有提到文化大革命，甚至係共產主義，咁佢係滿腦子係想鬧革命，想改變呢個世界，所以可能有提到北京。
The film is very, very funny. Lots of irony in it, and in the clip that you saw, the girl character is sitting in the back of the car and she's smiling because she's sort of understood already that it may be very idealistic and wonderful and great, and she loves him for that, but at the same time she's already sort of past that, so to speak. So the smile that she has on her face in the back of the car is very, very telling of the whole sort of point of view of the film, so to speak. But at the same time, the film doesn't say, and the scene doesn't say, don't try. It says try, but understand that, you know, it may be idealistic.
咁因為呢個片其實係過咗嗰個時代好長一段時間先至拍，咁回顧翻60、70年代當時嗰個情況。咁頭先佢話入邊喺個車上面有個女主角聽到嗰個男主角講好多呢啲咁理想嘅説話嘅時候，佢係有個好特別嘅笑容。咁佢嘅意思就係話嗰個女主角嘅笑容其實可以反映其實導演嗰個視覺可能係覺得佢講嘅嗰啲説話係有啲過分理想化，因為我哋從嗰個而家嘅角度去睇翻當時嘅情況，我哋係已經知道個事情係冇咁簡單。
Anyone else has any other question?
I have a quick question.
Yes?
There are huge numbers of good films and even masterpieces from Quebec, but how do these films play a part in the national cinema of Canada, and how these films are received in other areas, regions in Canada?
Oh boy, that could be the subject of a talk in itself. Well, in Quebec, I'll answer in two separate ways. In Quebec, it's cyclical, the reception from the audience in Quebec. There's periods where Quebec audiences are extremely receptive to their own cinema, and Quebec films do very, very well on our home turf, and are very popular. And even the more difficult films, quote unquote, do fairly well and stay long in cinema. And then there's other periods where it's catastrophic and people are completely disinterested in our cinema and don't go see our films. It's a bit more complicated than that, of course, because one of the problems of the periods where the audiences are less interested is because they are poorly distributed and they're poorly exhibited. And I say poorly not to blame either the exhibitors or the distributors, but because the system in Quebec is really not it's not at all supportive of distribution or exhibition of films that are not commercial. So it's a very big problem with Quebec cinema. There's a lot that's produced, but when you get to the end, basically, when you get to the exhibition of the films, the film releases, they're not very well supported, so they stay in the cinemas for a week, when they don't have time to build an audience, basically. So that's partly why there are the occasional slumps in the interest of the audience in Quebec for its own cinema.
咁個問題係關於其實魁北克省有出產咁多咁優秀嘅作品，咁但係其實佢哋喺當地嘅表現係即係觀眾係點樣睇呢啲作品？咁Claire 就話其實呢個係有啲周期性嘅。魁北克省嘅人民佢哋有啲時候可能會對佢哋自己嘅電影非常之有興趣，亦都可以有一個非常之好嘅票房嘅收入。咁但係都有啲時候係可能係非常之糟糕嘅。咁佢就話其實成個從發行到片商嘅放映嘅制度都對本土電影其實係支援都係唔足夠啦。咁所以有呢啲其實佢哋嘅出產係非常之多嘅。咁但係有時因為呢個成個制度係對佢哋嘅支援係唔夠咧，所以好多時候啲片上映可能好短嘅時間就會落畫。咁呢個係其實係一個周期性。
The other part of the answer to this question is the mystery that is Canada, and by that I mean what we usually call the two solitudes, which is basically Quebec is its own thing, its own world unto itself, and the rest of Canada, or ROC usually, is kind of its own world unto itself as well. Quebec films, except for a few rare exceptions, don't really travel much in the rest of Canada. They actually travel a lot more in the rest of the world than they do in the rest of Canada. And the same is true about Canadian films, English Canadian films, that they barely ever travel to Quebec or are shown in Quebec as well. It's a stupid situation, but it's more or less been like that forever. There's occasionally attempts to correct this. People who very enthusiastically try to promote either cinema in the rest of the country, but somehow it just doesn't really take. One of the reasons for that is that Quebec has a very strong star system. We have our own movie stars and TV stars in Quebec, which means that in Quebec, when people respond to our films, it's partly because they really respond to the stars in it. In Canada, there's no such thing as a star system at all. There are no Canadian stars, so Canadian, English Canadian audiences, they actually don't even go see their own films. They don't go, English Canadians don't go see English Canadian films. They don't go even see the big names. They don't go see the films by Cronenberg. They don't go see the films by Atamagoyan. So it's a mystery, basically.
咁佢就話其實加拿大你可以睇，其實佢喺入邊有兩個世界，魁北克省係一個世界，跟住講英文嘅其餘嘅省份係另外一個世界。咁魁北克省嘅電影其實可能喺世界各地比佢哋喺加拿大其他省份更加受歡迎。咁過去其實都有嘗試就係希望話喺講英文嘅區域去推廣魁北克電影，同埋喺魁北克省推廣加拿大省其餘呢啲其他省份嘅一啲講英文嘅電影，咁但係其實都係唔成功嘅，因為魁北克省嘅觀眾其實係佢哋係比較認佢哋自己本省嘅一啲明星，咁而且佢話 Claire 都話其實加拿大人本身對加拿大一啲比較知名嘅導演，可能其實都唔係特別咁樣去推崇，唔會因為係佢哋執導所以就去觀賞佢哋嘅電影，咁所以呢個其實喺推廣上係有困難。
Claire and I talked yesterday about this, which is kind of an anomaly, is that the Canadian Screen Awards, which is like the English Canadian Film Awards, that's the industry. It's like the Canadian Oscars rather than the Quebec Oscars. They greatly admire Quebec films, so we had the situation this last year that all 5 of the films that were nominated for Best Canadian Feature were all French Quebec films. Incredible.
Yeah, and that it's not rare. It happens almost every year, and it really is a mystery because it's something that's entrenched in basically our history. It's entrenched in our in that duality between the French and the English, between the days of the colony, and it's extremely difficult to overcome it. And in terms of Canadian cinema or Canadian art, the Quebec cinema has very, very, very strong identity, and Canadian cinema sort of came into its own a lot later than Quebec cinema. Quebec cinema started really in the 1960s, to finding its identity, finding what it was about. Canadian cinema really started finding its own voice in the 1980s, so 20 years later, I'm not saying, of course, that there was no English Canadian cinema before that. There was, but it truly came into its own a lot later than Quebec cinema, and so to a degree it's still sort of looking to define itself, and it's also struggling against its own myths. For one thing, that it's boring. Canadian cinema, just like every other cinema, some of it is boring, but not all of it is boring. But there's a very, very strong myth that endures to this day that Canadian cinema is boring, or Canadian television is boring. And it's true, there's a lot of really boring stuff, but there's a lot of amazing stuff as well. So it's still very much struggling against that. And I think that also plays against it, in terms of finding its audience, whether it's in English Canada or in Quebec. And the same is true. There's a certain degree of weird resentment towards Quebec cinema because it's so strong, and the identity of it is so strong, and the voice of Quebec cinema is so strong that some people just don't want to see it, even though, as Peter says, it wins all the awards. you know, in our own country. So.
咁啊，佢就話其實喺法語區同呢個英語區之間確實係有呢個一個比較難去逾越嘅一個鴻溝。咁佢頭先Peter 就提到就係話喺舊年嘅呢個加拿大嘅奧斯卡入圍最佳影片5部作品都係嚟自魁北克省嘅作品。咁呢種情況亦都非常之常見。好多時候魁北克省嘅作品係通常都係喺佢哋嘅自己嘅電影頒獎禮上面係得到好多獎項嘅。咁但係佢就Claire 就話其實佢哋魁北克電影佢能揾到自己嘅身份同埋個聲音，可能係比英語區加拿大嘅電影揾到佢自己嘅聲音同身份係更加早嘅。咁所以雙方之間係有一個咁樣嘅差異。咁確實係有影響到佢哋之間彼此之間嘅認識。咁同埋另外一樣嘢就係話加拿大嘅觀眾可能都會覺得加拿大產出嘅一啲電影同埋電視嘅作品可能會有啲係比較沉悶。咁但係其實呢個係一個誤解嚟嘅。
It's about time for us to get ready for the next screening, Jesus of Montreal. So thanks, Claire, again for giving us a very enriching.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored.
Okay, and also Peter Rees. Both seminars has been recorded and will be put online very soon. 咁就再提醒翻大家，今日一陣間再有另一場嘅放映啦，聽日亦都有3場嘅放映嘅。咁頭先 Claire 提過嘅其他戲，譬如好似嗰套叫做革命做半途而廢就會點咧，就會係喺8月14號先至喺電影資料館再放映。咁今日、聽日我哋有其他放映，至於8月5號咧就會休息嘅。咁希望大家到時都可以休息咁一齊去支持呢個嘅罷工嘅活動。香港人繼續加油，多謝大家。